Hello and welcome to the World Economic Forum's annual meeting in Davos. My name is Natalie Pierce and I am the head of the Global Shapers community, and I am proud to share with you today's session titled How to Believe in the Future. Today's session features 4 inspiring members of the World Economic Forum's Global Shapers community. In total, the Global Shapers community spans over 10,000 young people, creating positive dialogue, action, and change in over 500 cities in 150 countries around the world. Today and this week, Global Shapers have been sharing youth perspectives on what it takes to rebuild trust, the theme of this year's annual meeting. As a delegation, we also released our impact report, which showcases the ways that young people around the world are driving positive and lasting change. We met with world leaders, we've engaged with CEOs, and today's session is an opportunity to hear directly from young people about the issues that matter to our future, and particularly how are young people making a difference. With that, I will introduce it to today's excellent moderator. Over to you, Kamal.
Thank you so much, Natalie. This is the only World Economic Forum event I go to where people whoop in the audience when they come in because there's so much energy. There is so much energy in this room. It's absolutely magnificent. I'm always reminded, I've been fortunate enough, privileged enough to host this event each year at Davos. I'm always reminded of that remarkable statistic that the average age of the world is 29. The average age of decision makers is 55. And I must admit, I'm a little bit tired of something I hear a lot at the World Economic Forum, other business events I go to around the world. Youth advisory panels. They're good, okay, they're good. They're one little step. What we really need is youth decision panels. We need to listen and to allow young people to act and lead. I'm the editor-in-chief and co-founder of a new media business, The News Movement, based in New York and London, all about accurate, non-partisan, engaging information for the next generation of consumers, be they 18, be they 25, be they 30, in ways that they want information delivered about things that they can relate to. We've just published our biggest ever video, 16.8 million views on TikTok, of the young 21-year-old Maori New Zealand female MP who used her first speech in the New Zealand Parliament to perform a version of the haka and to allow a colonial space to be taken by an indigenous voice. Our audience love that because it is empowering people who too often, by the traditional structures, have been blocked out. So we are doing one thing in the media. Average age of my newsrooms, as I say, is 25. We are a female majority news organization, still too unusual in the media industry. But this is not about me and my small efforts to allow young people to make decisions about what they do. This is about my amazing panel of global shapers. Every year, I'm amazed by the talent that we have and the voices we need to listen to. Just finally, Taylor Hawkins, a global shaper from Sydney, I did this event 2 years ago, and she said to me, Kamal, it's not about you old people getting out of the way, but it is about you old people understanding partnership. And that's what this is about. So, we're going to start at the far left to me, not politically, just geographically. Felipe, you are the first, and how many times do we hear this around young people? The first, though, still, 2024 Assistant Secretary General for Youth Affairs. The United Nations Youth Office was established by the General Assembly to lead the engagement and advocacy for the advancement of youth issues. I'm not quite sure what youth issues are, but anyway, there we are. That's good to hear. But Felipe, we were fortunate enough to meet at an earlier event this week. You spoke so passionately about the opportunities that this new role was going to give you. So, Felipe, open up a little bit about that job. I think would be a great place to start. And what is your confidence? The theme of Davos this year has been rebuilding trust. Is it roles like yours that can help do that?
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you all. Thank you the ones that are here presential, and thank you the ones that are following up on social media. I will briefly explain this role and this position because I think it's something good, something of those positive changes we are having in institutions. And in order to change what you've been introducing into the conversation, now more young people in decision-making spaces, we need institutions to change. We need institutions, and that's something really important to point. No, actually, the World Economic Forum published its global risks reports, and it talked a lot about what are the big risks we have, no, for rebuilding trust also. And it mentions, I will try to bring two of them because I think it's important to bring into this conversation that situation. No, it's about disinformation and societal polarization as two big challenges on this process. No, and institutions are really important in order to move forward and to solve these big issues we have for the future. No, but the problem is that young voices and young people are not trusting on them. No, actually, the UN has led the Special Envoy on Youth, which is now the UN Youth Office, has led a campaign called Be Seen, Be Heard in order to put into the table the discussion about political engagement. And actually, one of those efforts showed that 76% of young people, of people under 30, don't believe that they are being represented by the political discussions. So that's the big challenge now. The UN decided to create a UN office inside the UN and with political support of member states. That's a big issue. I think that's very important because the 193 member states in the UN decided to create this office. The big challenge is what we start doing now. Now we have political support. We have trust of young constituencies at different levels. The global shapers, we've been exchanging opinions about this. The challenge is how we make institutions to change. Also understanding that institutions need some time to change. So that's the big issue, no? How we manage with that. And I'm sure that one first important pace is getting into the conversation more young voices, no? Actually, I think the global shapers are a good example of that here at Davos, no? They, in every meeting they put different things into the table, different ways. They are also provocating discussions and provocating things to change. And actually, that's what we need in politics, no? This example you bring, it's actually a very good example of that, no? Young people in parliaments that are making the discussions change, no? But actually, that's not very frequent. Only 2.8% of parliamentaries around the world are under 30 years old, while the population under 30 is 50%. So that's a big challenge.
So Felipe, what can be done? You're right that I think we know, well, I don't know that we understand, but we know a lot of the challenges we have. But Felipe, just give us a view of 2024 for you and the UN about what can be actually done. Because of course we have to map out the challenges that we have, but practical things that should be happening.
Actually, I think it's a very good question. I'm sure I don't have the perfect answer. But we're dealing with it, but I'm sure about where to move forward. And I think that one thing we should do is bring young-led efforts together into the table. There are lots of different efforts around different institutions at the global, at the regional, at the local levels. But one big challenge is how we bring those efforts together, no? How we coordinate more between the youth movements and the youth constituencies. That's actually one of our first steps in the youth office. I think the creation of a youth office institutionalized in the Secretariat of the UN is a good space where to these efforts to get together, to network, and and to work together. I think that's the first step, and that's where we are that's our starting point. No, what follows? It's not only about our team, no? It's about also what young people want that to go. And that's really important for us, because at the same time we are building this strategy in how to engage with different youth constituencies. The second thing is about how we, as a UN Youth Office, work on meaningful youth engagement, but not in the description, in the practical way, how we are going to manage that. And that is going to lead our office in some way. Also, at the same time, bringing into the discussion other stakeholders, because as you also mentioned, this change is not going to happen in a discussion from one to against the other one. No? This is an intergenerational challenge, and hopefully we have people like you that, being not part of our youth generation, are supporting us. So we should work more with these voices.
Okay, that's excellent, Felipe. That's a nice, optimistic view of what can be achieved. Saisha, could I bring you in? You are the founder of Partner with Purpose. I think this is a very important day for you. You have an announcement for us, which I think is really exciting. Oh, just to say to the audience who are in here, we will be having some questions a little later, so the lights will come up and we will be having audience participation. It's lovely, all the people who are joining us online from around the world. And also, Felipe, just building actually on your point, the Global Shapers community does allow for that sharing of knowledge, that notion of scaling and sharing different knowledge. But Saisha, give us an outline of Partner with Purpose, and then maybe we'll go on to how has your Davos been?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and thank you to everybody that is here today, and thank you to our amazing community of 10,000 shapers from all 501 cities and all 154 countries around the world. So just to take half a step back, a little bit of context about who I am, which I think leads into what Partner with Purpose is. My name is Saisha. I am from India. I live in New York. I have spent the last 12 years trying to address inefficiencies in social impact. I have spent half that time in capital allocation seats out of New York, where I led the early Asia strategy of a $1 billion foundation, where it felt like we were allocating capital as well as we could, but not nearly as efficiently as we could have. And then the rest of my time in my job with McKinsey, opinions that I expressed today are my own, with McKinsey, where I've helped lead the startup accelerator for founders that face systemic barriers, where we've seen, again, the barriers to capital allocation. The rest of my time I have spent in the hospitals, in the fields, in the schools, with governments, activists, NGOs, where money just feels really hard to come by and capital feels scarce. But I know from being on both sides of this that that is not true. It's just, it's mostly a misallocation issue. And that is what I care about. I want to spend my life trying to rebalance that scale. I see that as my life's purpose, and that led to the genesis of this idea, Partner with Purpose. How do we connect companies that we know want to do good and be responsible stakeholders in their community to last-mile, underserved nonprofits that we know are out there doing most of the work in our communities? Those are ultimately the sub-partners that some of these large, overfunded nonprofits that are the ones within the corporate radars end up being, those are the only ones that do end up actually getting the funding. So here's where Partner with Purpose comes in. We connect companies to these nonprofits with global shapers hubs and all of our amazing global shapers that go out into communities hyper-locally, and I'll tell you why that's important in a second, but we find companies, we understand what their values are, and then we go out and find nonprofits that are going to help companies to tell more authentic, credible impact stories. Why is this important? Because 53% of customers, shareholders, stakeholders, and most importantly, employees, which are, by the way, now, as I learned, the most important stakeholder for any corporate. It's your employees. It's not the people you're trying to sell to. And we are all going to be in all of these positions within the next 7 or 8 years. And the thing about millennials and Gen Z is that we have an 8-second attention span, and if we feel companies are being disingenuous to us, we are going to take our attention and our dollars elsewhere. And so while I've been hearing this whole week, to close off, about Davos, I think it's amazing that companies and some awesome examples of folks have been talking about being these responsible stakeholders in their communities. But I thought it was interesting that they're talking about it as a nice to have. I really think that businesses and corporates our business leaders need to take this as a warning that you have one opportunity to really get it right with our generation. Because fortunately, businesses, we've lost faith in government. We've lost faith in institutions. Businesses actually remain the only standing pillar that young people actually do believe have the competence, questionable on the character, but at least the competence to be able to deliver these social outcomes. And we're placing our trust in the businesses, and we want the businesses that we buy from, work for, engage with, invest in to be good. And Partner with Purpose provides an opportunity to all kinds of companies to partner with us to make that happen.
That's brilliant. And Sasha, why do you think it is that businesses have retained at least a degree of trust? This is the big theme of World Economic Forum in Davos this year, where governments and other institutions have failed.
It's a good question. I think trust is a factor of, well, I think the way the World Economic Forum has phrased its theme for this year, rebuilding trust, I don't like it. And I'll tell you why. Because it talks about trust as this zero-sum thing that's either you have or you don't have, it's given or it's broken. But trust is a process, Kamal. Trust is a process of continuous giving and earning. It is a process of a company or an institution or a government saying it's going to do something and having its actions back up what it's saying it's going to do. Who here believes that our governments and our institutions are doing what they say that they believe in? For everyone that's tuning in,
yeah, no hands.
there is not a single hand up in this room.
Yep.
And this
builds on the trustworthiness.
Yes.
Not on the trust.
Yeah, but let's keep that to the panel. Keep that to the panel. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. We'll come to questions later. Yeah, carry on, Sasha.
But I think it's a good point, right? The sir raised a point about trustworthiness, which is about behavior. And so we don't believe as young people that our governments and institutions' words are lining up with their behavior. However, for businesses, we think trust is it's a factor of two things, right? It is your capabilities, which is how you do things, and it is your character, which is why you do things. So businesses have retained a degree of trust because we do believe they have the capabilities and the competence, the resources, to be able to deliver certain outcomes, and we're seeing great examples of this to start. Now the question mark is around the character of companies when you say, why are you doing this? And so this is where companies have an opportunity to create alignment between the actions that they're doing and why they're saying they're doing them. And this is not just about a fancy vision statement that was written by some guy in your company 80 years ago. It is about the everyday. It is about what do you stand for? So what are your values, and how are your actions granularly and in a detailed way, using your expertise as business leaders, delivering on those things that you say you believe in? And we'll get into examples and stories in a bit.
Yeah. Sasha, that's absolutely brilliant. The other thing about the employees point that you make, which is so powerful, is that employees can communicate in a second around the world about bad things they see wherever they may see it in a way that was not possible when I was your age. It was simply impossible to communicate in that way.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the thing that I would encourage as a young person, as borderline millennial Gen Z, the thing that employers need to realize is that through the pandemic, not just young people, everybody, but especially young people have renegotiated their relationship with the workplace. And that's just not a question of work-life balance. It is, what is the role, how do I want to show up as an employee in the workplace, and what is my relationship with my employer? And so if companies are not engaged in an authentic relationship with us, and I believe mine is, and I believe some aren't, and ones that I have been and the previous haven't been, and there's all of these, it's a relationship like any other. And so I do think that companies need to understand that they do need to continuously earn the trust of their employees on an ongoing basis.
Yeah. Naifamu, thank you so much, Sasha. Naifamu, founder of Pharmatrix. Sasha actually asked the best question here, which failed me, actually. A bit of background of the people that are on this panel with us. So it'd be lovely to hear some of your journey, but also about Pharmatrix. It's a technology company solving agricultural challenges of obviously food security is one of the most important aspects of how we live in a good society. So it'd be lovely to hear a little bit about your story and about the work you do. And then, as I said to Sasha, it's great to hear your your experience of Davos and how we can ensure that this is a space which more and more visibly young people own?
Thank you so much for asking. I'm Ifamu again from Nigeria, and I am a farmer, just to add. I know we all have eaten food today, right? So you should thank your farmer anywhere you see one. Maybe thank me too for adding to that. So I am very passionate about food security, and this had come from different stages of my life. For one, I started growing food because I wanted to feed people and also to find peace. It is very interesting to see that you put something to the ground, you put seed to the ground, and it grows to something, and people eat it, and you can feed the nation out of it. I moved from Lagos State, Nigeria. I used to live in Lagos State, Nigeria, to Kaduna State. Kaduna State is the northern part of Nigeria, and over 80% of the people who live in Kaduna are farmers. And just a little bit of context too, over 80% of the people in Nigeria are smallholder farmers, and 70% of these people are women in agriculture. Not young people, which a lot of people say not young people are in agriculture, right? But I started this because I wanted young people to also know that agriculture, like I was mentioning earlier in a session, people said agriculture needs to be fancy. Agriculture don't have to be fancy. We need to know that we are the backbone of food systems. We are feeding people. There's a responsibility, and agriculture is a business. So people need to know that if you make agriculture a business for young people, more young people will come on board. And I started growing, and I got some lands for maize production in northern Nigeria to start growing food and selling to people. Over time, I grew about 1 hectare, but I couldn't get access to market, which was terrible because I was so excited that everybody wants to eat food. But the value chain was broken because not everybody have access to locate market. And just a little bit of context again, the agro-commodity in Nigeria is worth $3.8 billion. We currently experience 40% post-harvest loss in Nigeria. And we grow a lot of food, but why are we having a lot of loss and not making money out of it, $3.8 billion? I started connecting smallholder farmers to markets by leveraging on technology, a software and solution platform, to make sure that every farmer who has put in efforts to grow food have access to the last mile market. Currently, we connect farmers to manufacturing companies that use these grains as a feed additive for poultry and also for the beers that we drink and the molds too. Coming back to why I'm passionate about this, I want to make sure that everybody is food secure. Everybody has food on their table to eat. It is going to be an absolute pleasure for me that in the next 5 to 10 years, we all do not go hungry because there are more farmers who are having their products to the market.
Thank you for that. What amazing work you're doing. How has the experience been here for the week in terms of, has it been a place to learn and make good links? Has your voice been heard, do you feel? I just wondered what the experience was like for you. And is this your first Davos?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this is my first Davos. This is my first winter experience, just to add. So it's been very cold. However, I've been super excited being here. There have been a lot of topics flying around, technology, AI, but one of the things that really caught my attention is the fact that in most rooms, people are talking about food security, climate action, and how young people can come on board in the agricultural sector. I was super excited. It is not every time you see conferences like this or meetings like this and people talk about agriculture. I don't know why, because we feed you. So you should talk about agriculture, right? One of the most exciting sessions I attended was the one I attended today on First Movers Coalition for Food, because I saw people who are willing to hear from smallholder farmers. Oh, you heard that? Who were willing to support smallholder farmers, support women in agriculture, because women make up 80%, 70%, of smallholder farmers, but yet they don't have enough access to funding, land opportunities. I'll use Nigeria as an instance. A lot of women do not have access to land lending or land leasing. They don't have enough support on finances. And if we don't have this support from the older generations, the key stakeholders, the companies who have the money to fund this project, we will not be able to push out our solutions. So it was very exciting for me to see that most of the rooms, especially today, yesterday and today, people were talking about food, climate action, to strengthen the value chain of the agricultural system, and also to promote food systems.
Thank you so much. It's amazing the way you do it. It's amazing how in maybe traditional media, you know, my sector, how little food is spoken about. And as you say, agriculture, and there should be much more focus. You feed us, that's your role. We are so interested in talking about technology and computing and whatever it might be, but you need to go back to these issues which are absolutely table stakes for all of us. So it's lovely to have your voice here. Robert, lovely to have you here. Also your first Davos, which is, well, we'll find out what kind of experience it's been for you. You are anti-racism policy advisor to the Canadian Minister of International Trade, Innovation and Investment, which is amazing. But I know, Robert, as well, you want to be clear here that you're speaking also personally and for some of the work and the passions you have, and just to make sure there's enough distance between your role and what you might be saying here today. But Robert, tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey. That is sounds to me like a super powerful position that your voice could be heard. But Robert, tell us a bit about your journey and then a little bit about, as I've asked each of the panelists, your experience here the first time and how you felt about that.
Thank you. It's been a week. It's been a tiring week, an engaging week, and just to introduce myself in a way that so you can see me here and see how I've been showing up in this place. My name is Robert Beamish, but my spirit name is Ozawa Makwa, which means brown bear in Ojibwe. My father is Algonquin Métis and Irish. My mother is African Jamaican and Indigenous Jamaican. So I get to bring these intersections and these lenses to my work, not only the work I do in anti-racism, but my professional life, my personal life, how I navigate spaces and sit in the room and hear the conversations. And so I've been really thrilled to be able to go into sessions where DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, where racial equity was put on the table. But it was also abundantly clear that this is on the table because it's profitable. And so we should all be doing this because you can make a profit. Inclusion is profitable. We've seen innovation increase by 20%. We've seen margins grow. We've seen employee satisfaction. And that's really encouraging to be able to have that kind of space for this. But I think of all the times when it wasn't profitable to be inclusive, where it wasn't profitable for a racial equity, and that wasn't on the table. And where it is on the table now, and we have this confluence, there is both this kind of harrowing feeling that I hope this stays profitable. I hope this stays profitable. And for a long time, I've seen examples where it wasn't profitable for certain people and they were in the way of profit and they experienced genocide. That's happened in Canada. Indigenous people were in the way of progression and they experienced genocide. And so it's a really scary thing to be in the way of profit. So I would question the trust in business because I think that is changing, but ultimately there's a responsibility to stakeholders. And I think that as we sit here now, and as we have executives from the public and private sector in this space, and I say executives very specifically because there are leaders and there are also executives. And I think the role of a leader cannot be conflated with the role of an executive. Where executives lead company and they return their shareholder value and they're aligned with their business objectives, and leaders might have a different role to play in that. They can still fulfill that, but they might not have the same role. And I think of the world we have today and some of the biggest issues we have in the world where we have a humanitarian crisis that is unparalleled in Palestine, and we have executives talking about other subjects. And I think of how scary it is that profit is centered and not people. So I think
so interesting. There's a moral dimension, there's a need dimension. Does it worry you, this profit issue that you're hearing here too often? That is still the motivation? Canada has still got so much narrative to get through on its history. It's unbelievable. The things that you've been finding about the experience of the colonization moves in your country is remarkable to a completely external viewer. How can businesses act in a way that is driven by equity. I love what you said about leadership and executives and how those are different things. That's amazing. But how can we act in a way as business leaders? Do you think we should put back the profit motive or the being a better business? Being a better business, to me, will hopefully become more profitable. But being better is the important bit to me. But that might not be right in the way I'm thinking about it.
It's not always. So we have a market-centered approach, and I think I heard a quote this week where it's not a fish that discovered water. You have to be outside of it in order to look in. It was someone that wasn't in the water, that knew the water was there. And so by looking at this profit motive, and we take this as the machine and we continue on with the machine and how we've been going, we don't have the opportunity to stop and reflect. Because it has brought us this far. It has raised so many people out of poverty, but it's also destroyed our environment. It's put us in, there are so many crises that are happening around the world that it's hard to say that we're in a good place globally, where we've seen the trust in institutions fall apart, but yet we still trust this model that we've attached ourselves to and that we cling to, where I think this model itself needs to be revisited. And if we can decenter shareholders, but you can still have a return without looking at, how do you make inclusion profitable? You can still make a profit. You can still be a successful business. You can still be, you still commit to your shareholder value and center people. And I think that's how you build trust. Because if people aren't centered, then where are we going? We'll have a beautiful, balance sheets and income statements, but where are the people going to be there?
Did you feel heard here?
I asked questions almost every session. I have a very quick arm. I do. Some people were very like, oh my gosh, that guy's asking a question. My questions were asked. My voice sounded through the mics, but I don't know if the energy behind it was heard, or what I said of like, how do we make a meaningful change? How do we center the people through this process? What about the people who are doing this work? Those people, we have a great, it's shifted, and I think it's very diplomatic, and it speaks to the caliber of executives that we have in this place to be able to maneuver around questions and to take the next response and to do that. So I was heard, I might not have been listened to.
Okay. Well, amazing energy you brought, Robert. Thank you. Saisha, just come in. We need to be quite quick, because I want to get to some questions. Saisha, do come in. And Naifamu, I want to bring you in on this trust issue as well, and then back to Felipe, and then to questions. So we've got to be quick.
I will try to be. I do have a couple of examples that I want to pack in. So give me a minute.
Yeah.
I think I made a decision very early when I was in college about whether I wanted to be the person standing outside an institution with a cardboard sign, or whether I wanted to be the person within the system trying to rebuild change. I think both people are needed, to be clear. I think we need the energy of the people that are advocating for the best, but I also think we need practical people. Well, practical is a questionable word, but people who are willing to get in the muck and work with what we have. Now, I do think that so when I'm in the nonprofit space, those people don't speak corporate. They don't understand the priorities of massive multi-billion-dollar companies, and they don't know how to talk to them. And when I talk to business leaders, a lot of the time, they don't know the difference between two nonprofits that are doing exactly the same thing. And so I do think it is not about whether we're centering profit or whether we're centering people. I think we get to be in the driver's seat and get to decide what we care about, which ultimately is what determines shareholder value. So let me tell you two things. One, there were two examples. One, this week, I'm just going to tell you the stories. We were on a panel earlier this week, invited by the World Economic Forum or their affiliate partners, not going to name them, where 3 young people were invited to an hour-and-a-half-long panel. I was one of them, where we were given 3 minutes each to speak, and then the rest of the time, 11 different institutions and companies shared their PR initiatives and talked amongst themselves about what I thought were completely the wrong facts and had nothing to do with the things that are actually going to move the needle on impact. That was disappointing. On the other side of that, again, I'm biased because I work at McKinsey, and I think a lot of the time we do not get to share on the question of reputation and character. We don't get to share a lot of the actually high integrity, amazing work that happens there, because I would never work in a place that deviated even slightly from my own personal moral compass of the people I surround myself with. And one of the people I surround myself with is a partner in the New York office called Vasant Kanesan. I've worked with him on food security, actually, for most of the year. And the way McKinsey has enabled some of the work that we have done has been really interesting. So we have a partnership through Partner with Purpose with McKinsey and this nonprofit in New York called Grow NYC that works on food security issues in New York. So they discovered that they realized that smallholder farmers in New York can't really afford to access the expensive warehousing in the Bronx because they've been priced out by Amazon and Gristedes and some of the larger retailers. And so they are building a 60,000 square foot warehouse in the Bronx, which is the first publicly funded food solution in the region, which people should look up Grow NYC and what they're doing there. And on the other side, they're giving that food to up to 260 community-based organizations that are food insecure in New York. So it's public, and McKinsey comes in and does what they're good at. They give we are going to, beginning next week, give operational expertise, help with their go-to-market, help with their launch, and it is this very symbiotic partnership where global shapers are then coming in and helping to spread the word and do the marketing around this. And we did this because people like our social impact team decided that this is a local priority, asked me what my impact framework 2 years ago were for evaluating nonprofits, and threw out their list of their senior partners, board nominations overnight, and completely redid their process. And so I'm continuously inspired, and it is very obvious, to my point that I was saying before, when companies take their employees seriously and take their passions seriously, and in a no-brainer of a second say, yeah, absolutely, go ahead and do that. And when you have the first example where leaders are, before we're even leaving the room, kind of already typing their social media posts instead of kind of saying bye to us, which I thought was hilarious.
I love your example as well. Naifamu, tell us around this trust issue. The work you do is obviously building trust itself day to day, but in politics, business, do you see this difference in trust levels? Robert's challenged some of the other thinking as well?
Okay, I would use my work, first off, to give an example on building trust, even while trying to generate profit, right? It is very important that you put people at the center of what you do. For us, we are people-centric. So because we are working towards improving the livelihoods of smallholder farmers in Nigeria, we make sure that while we want to make profit, they get the money first. They become happy first, their livelihoods increase. I'll give you a typical example of a farmer that we work in Samnaka. Samnaka is a very, not too big village in Kaduna, but in Africa, they are the highest growers of maize in Africa. Madam Aisha was she's always excited about farming, right? But when it comes to selling, she has 3 daughters. When it comes to selling, she doesn't always sell her grains at a very profitable price because the middlemen come, take these things and sell to the higher buyers and give them like peanuts. When I went in 2019 to Samnaka to get some grains from farmers, because sometimes when you have to aggregate most of all these things, you don't have enough from your own farm. You need to reach out to other farmers. We started working with Madam Aisha. And in 2019-2020, she had an increase of about 38% profit than what she usually gets from the aggregators that buy from her. And one of what that did was to make her trust us more. I was having a conversation with one of the shippers earlier today, and he said, what would make a farmer give you their products without you giving them money first? And I said it's because they know that when I bring back their money, they have higher returns than what they would get than selling to any other company or selling to the aggregators. And with that, that's highest joy for me, knowing that we're improving the life of these people, improving the livelihood of these farmers, and yet we're making profits, right? So it is also going to help in building trust. And for the government, I will use Nigeria as an example. We usually don't have a lot of young people in politics before, but now we currently have a not too young to run campaign in Nigeria, and currently there's been an increase of about 9.2% on young people being in government. With this, we have more trust in our government. We know that there are younger people who are now lending voices in decision-making tables, which is very important because we are the future. We are the leaders of tomorrow, right? We are the future, but we cannot be the future or the leaders if we don't have a voice on these tables. And I'm super excited that the Nigerian government is gradually getting there. And for us to be here too as young people, we are almost like the youngest people in every room we enter. So it's also giving us a voice on the table to make sure that we can build trust with these people, even though sometimes they don't really take the things that we say seriously. But we know we are getting there. We are getting there. This is a step to making sure that our voices are being heard and we are building trust with our leaders too.
Thank you so much. Felipe, can we be very brief? Time is against us. I want a few comments from the room though, but Felipe, the UN, trust, what could you do, not just you on your own, of course, but what could the UN do to rebuild the trust? The challenge from Aisha is that it's really only business where there is a real sense that trust is, at least could be built there.
Okay, I slightly disagree, but I really think that disagreement is a good thing in discussions. But in order to have results of discussions and not only louding voices from different sides, and with that the challenge of polarization that actually was where I started my first words. I will say that we need institutions, and we are not going to change institutions from the outside. What do I think institutions need to do is to listen more. Actually, that's where the UN Youth Office is starting. I mentioned, I really know that youth voices are extremely diverse. And I'm not the representative of youth voices at the UN. I'm just the head of an office that has a clear mandate that is bringing more young voices into the decision-making and into the UN. In that way, listening more and acting through the communities is how we are going to change. Actually, I really think this is a great opportunity for the UN this year. Actually, the UN is in this process called Summit of the Future. The Summit of the Future is a great opportunity of how we rethink the future of multilateralism. But it's a good opportunity to get involved, and that's what we are going to try now. We are going to try to bring young voices into this process, which is an intergovernmental process, and we should be clear also about that, because that's the essence of the UN. It's a multilateralism organization with 193 member states, but it's something unique. And of course the UN has a lot of things to improve. Of course the UN has a lot of things that maybe is not moving forward as fast as is it needed.
Yes.
But the UN is unique, and we need to take care of the UN with this kind of process.
Use your mandate well, Felipe. Okay, I've got time for one person to make some very, very powerful comments, and it's going to be this person here who Robert has learned to put their hands up quickly. Lights up, or I don't know, can we film still with the lights down? No, okay,
no,
just
no.
make your point. Not a question, I'm sorry, we're just tight.
It's okay.
Cool.
So I'm from Brazil. I'm 26. I'm a global shaper also. I'm part of this huge team over here. I like to say that I'm a really common result of two things: education and opportunity. So I'm the result of good public policies. So yes, I believe in institution, and that's why I'm studying public policy and government, because I want to be in the inside. And I share this view that we need to be in inside, but in our way, with our voice. We don't need to be like everybody else. That's what they told us to be, right? We need to talk as young people, to be as young people, but inside, so we can change a little bit. So my question, I would like to do a question.
We only have 1 minute,
If
so
we
we
have
have to finish, yeah.
How you guys should tell me how we should involve more young people from our countries to do this?
we will have to not take it as a question. I hope that we've all spoken, or the panel has spoken at least in part to help us do that. The global shapers will still be going in their hubs. The conversation will continue digitally and online and in the geographical hubs. I want to say thank you so much to, I got to finish. Thank you so much, Felipe, Saisha, Naifamu, Robert. What a great session we have had. I want to say thank you as well to Natalie, who does such good work in this organization. She is passionate about what we are doing. I want to say thank you. This has been the best audience in the World Economic Forum. What noise it has been. Thank you so much. I'm sure the millions of people who've joined us worldwide for this program. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you. The energy, bottle it, use your mandate, use your voice, and let's make some change. Thank you very much.